So, if you can start with a bit of an introduction, Anita, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, introductions are actually really, really hard. I'm Anita Modestova. I'm an English teacher from Moscow. I've been an English teacher for 7 years only, I guess. I don't feel like it's a lot of experience. I'm counting since my CELTA. I did my CELTA in April 2013. I used to be a psychologist. No, I was trained to be a psychologist. I've never worked much as a psychologist, more like with just with kids. And I tried teaching English in different institutions, different areas, like a little bit of very young learners, state school, like corporate courses, like private school, university for a year, and big in company training center, and I've been self-employed for 4 years now as a teacher. And a year ago I started my own hard to describe in a couple of words. It's like English and teacher training project for English teachers. So that would be in a nutshell.
Sure, great, okay. I think there's a lot already there that we'll talk about. I think there's a couple of things that I want to get to. I want to talk a little bit about the work that you do, that you just briefly introduced, some of the training and things that you do, and some of the work you do with teachers. There's a couple of things in your background there. I mean, it sounds actually quite a lot of it is quite similar to some of my own experiences. So you've had a nice kind of range of experiences teaching different ages and teaching in different contexts. Have you settled on a favorite? Is there something out of all those that you like, and is there anything that you don't enjoy doing?
I can't say there is something I don't enjoy. I think I'm maybe the kind of person, I start doing something and I enjoy it, maybe apart from documents. I hate working with documents.
Okay.
Now, like when you have your own business, there is lots of accounting stuff. But no, accounting might be interesting, but documents, paperwork, no, never. So in terms of English, I enjoyed everything. I really enjoyed very young learners. It's like when you're allowed to have fun, run all over the place, sing songs, and people keep paying you for that. So that's and the kids are amazing. The only thing I usually like when they, I don't know, at least in Russia, when your child has a running nose, you can't take them to the state kindergarten, but you can bring them to a private kindergarten. And so the teacher is the one with the running nose for the next day. So that's me. That's the downside.
That sounds about right.
I liked everything, but now I chose, I believe, so I really like your question, because I believe that, at some point you need to choose your niche, because there is so much to learn about this tiny niche, and you can't do everything. But I don't know, I know there are people who would disagree. So now I specialize in teaching adults. I love low levels, so beginners, elementary. This is my favorite. Not because I don't enjoy other levels, but this is just something I'm, I don't know, interested in, fascinated by how adults learn the language. Maybe it's more rewarding in a way, because when you see those steps at lower levels,
right? Yeah, you can really feel the progress every lesson, right?
Yeah, and I try to focus on basically general conversational English for life that they need.
Sure.
So that's in terms of English teaching. That would be it.
Okay. Is that what you were doing in? Is that what you're doing in the university context?
No, at university it was. For me, adults, the group I'm teaching, age group would be I usually say if somebody asks if I teach kids, I say yes, I do. I teach kids who are older than 25 years old.
Sure.
So this is my audience. At university, it was just a year of practice. So it was first, second years at university. So for me, they're they're not young learners anymore, but they're very young adults, maybe. So a bit different context. I like it when there is no a fixed program like at university, when I can choose to do something myself.
I found it quite similar. I taught for I guess 3 semesters, just over a year in a university as well. And when I was in the university, I was doing 2 courses. One was English and one was TEFL. And so it was really the TEFL course that attracted me to the job there. And then the English course was the English teaching, I should say, was kind of filling up my hours, I suppose. But I was surprised as well, and how similar it was to just teaching high school kids. You know, you kind of have this assumption that, oh well, they're adults now, and but it was just like another year of school especially for the first year students. It was a bit different for the later semesters, but it surprised me a bit.
Yeah, it's like they're kids, and they're like sitting there listening to you very carefully and like writing everything down. Talk. No.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was good. It was one of my most interesting teaching experiences, I think, was being in that context. And obviously, as you said, when they're beginner level students, you see the progress that they make, the very quick progress that they make in learning the language. And in the university context for me as well, I particularly enjoyed watching them change as learners. Here in Indonesia, I don't know what Russia's like actually, but you can tell us a little bit about that as a teaching context. Here is very formal, and so the learners were very used to just kind of sitting, listening, doing as they're told, taking notes, writing things down, and it was very rewarding in the university classrooms to kind of change that paradigm with the learners and see after a few weeks, see them really come to take a whole new approach to learning, as well as developing their English. They were just different kinds of learners by the time that I'd spent some time with them. What's it like in Russia? Is it similar?
It really depends, seriously. So mostly I would say university is a rather formal place. Yes, in general. I went to teach to the university I graduated from as a psychologist. So it's not a language university, it's like humanities. Yeah. And I was teaching at the faculties of sociology and psychology a little bit. And yeah, our university is like kind of a funny mixture of formal and informal, because I mean, basically it's like kind of affiliated to the Russian Academy of Science. So basically all other teachers are scientists, and they're quite, I mean, they're amazing people, but they're quite formal in terms, because scientists, they like write a lot of formal papers,
of course,
and research, and I mean, and they're usually so the context, like they interact in as more formal, like conferences and stuff. So, and I was like, it was 4 or 5 years ago, I was trying to bring this I don't know, informality in class, at least with my students. I guess it's hard to switch context for them when they had
I think
a lecture just 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's it. It's hard for the students. It's hard for the teachers as well, I think, or the lecturers, whatever we call them. I mean, I think often in that context, teaching isn't really their priority, right? They're there to either further their studies, or they're teaching whilst they're doing research or writing their papers. And I think for some of them, teaching is kind of something that they have to do. It's part and parcel of being an academic, and that was what I found as well. You know, when I was working in the university, it's because I was a teacher and I was there to teach, and that's what I wanted to do. And that was just, that alone meant that I had a very different approach to some of the other teachers or the lecturers there, because their heart wasn't really in the teaching side of things.
I guess it's very similar here. And and the curriculum, like in the schedule, it was like English was written like as well, like as everything, lectures and like,
that's it, right? An English lecture doesn't,
we don't have lectures. But what I like learned myself from that experience, first of all, it was my first experience of like teaching big groups, like about 20 people, 20, 25. So we didn't split them. I don't remember doing that. And very mixed level groups, because somebody like, I think like now we're supposed, like, so now English is mandatory, I think, at all schools, but it didn't used to be. So some would study French or German, and I don't speak either French or German, so this would be the most popular languages, like after English, to learn. And I mean, they were all together, like very, very, like zero. I remember a girl, like she really didn't know how to say hello. So English kind of, I don't know how it's possible.
I tend to tell my teachers that that's almost impossible these days. But of course, there's always gonna be that one. You'll find one somewhere, of course. Like
okay. But one thing that I was surprised. So I was happy that at my university I was allowed to do, like, it was a very mixed experience for me again as a teacher. Like, so on the one hand, I was allowed to do anything I wanted within the classroom, but on the other hand, our like head teacher, she had a very unusual approach about teaching, and yeah, so she didn't control what we were doing, so I kind of
Right.
ignored her ideas. But then there was a, like, when she came to observe, then there was a problem. Anyway, we were doing for me, not for them, luckily, but and then I quit. So
Okay.
and we were doing, I think, Speak Out, the course book, because I chose it like for the videos and for the topics.
Sure.
It was relevant, I guess, for their context as well as sociologists. And I was amazed how much can be achieved even when you have limited time in class, but all the students have to do their homework.
Right,
so,
I see.
and this is amazing because they spend as much time as in class, like doing some at home, because we had this like so we agreed like that if they do their homework they won't have any formal tests in the end. Yeah, so yeah, so it was easier for them, and the results were amazing. So I was much worse teacher back then, definitely, just because the students were doing their homework. As I teach adults now, and I'm an adult and I'm learning languages myself, I like practically never do my homework, knowing that it would massively improve and speed up my learning. But still, yeah, so that was I still remember that, and I'm not sure, like I try to I don't know, pass this message on to my adult students, like just letting them know that it really works. I saw it. What can happen in months if you study and do homework.
I think the research kind of backs that up now as well. There's, I think, a movement that I endorse to kind of reduce the amount of homework, because we see so much homework in some contexts. Here in Indonesia is every lesson, lots of homework. By the time the students get home after 6 or 7 lessons for the day, they've got 6 or 7 hours of homework to do at home, and that's every day. I mean, that's outrageous. I think and so there's been a lot of movement around the world to move away from that. I think we're seeing now, as the research comes in, that less homework for the smaller kids is good, but some homework for the middle age, and then as you get to the kind of the upper years, a good amount of homework seems to actually help with a lot of progress. So that's something that I wasn't happy to see that that's the truth, but the truth it is. So there we are.
So you're against homework. I mean, it also depends on the hours that you have, but we had like, I guess our system, again, uni system is not designed to learn languages, because basically you have, we call it like a pair, so 2 classes in a row per week. So that's it. Okay. So it's once a week for 3 hours. And then like see you next week. So it's like homework is essential. Like
definitely that makes a lot of sense. It's something I often have to make clear to when I work with schools here, when I'm whether consulting or designing programs for schools, the amount of progress that they expect from their students. They want to achieve wild outcomes. And I'll sit down with them and we'll go through the schedule and we'll count the sessions per week and the hours and the weeks in the year. So, by the time you add all of this up, you're looking at basically 50 hours per year, and you're expecting to get native level, fluent, whatever language, whatever terms we use, out of after a couple of years of studying. Like it's basically they'll be in school for 12 years and they'll have spent something like a week speaking English. It's just the level of progress that they expect to make is just very unrealistic.
Yeah, I think it's because years and hours, like we still believe in, like, we're counting it kind of in years. Just wanted to, a couple of words about that method that I mentioned. Also, so I think it's like every place where you work depends on your management and the ideas that they have. And I was a very like, it was my first time teaching at university. I was really like, I was very proud that they like kind of accepted me without like any prior much of experience, and I'm not a researcher. I don't have a PhD or anything. So I was really, surprised and happy about it. And but then I was like, I'm not sure that this resembles anything they taught us at CELTA or something. Yeah, the idea of that system was like that we should do a lot of grammar translation things. So I don't know if it's a thing in Indonesia as well. So we're very good at translation stuff. We were supposed to cover all. It was called all grammar, but basically it was all tenses passive and active voices, but basically like even the future perfect continuous, both passive and active. And then and some modals. I remember modals were somewhere on the schedule, and then the idea was like, if the students can do the test by the end of the semester, we have like 2 semesters, yeah, a whole year consists of them, and then it means that for the second semester they can start with the intermediate book because they already know all the grammar.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is
yeah, so yeah.
no, this is the perfect opportunity for me because so that's the way learning is here in most of the schools. That's basically when I go and work at a school or work with teachers. That's the thing that I'm trying to change, right? Because that's so standard here. Whether I'm training or talking with teachers, there's not only is that the standard, the mainstream approach here, but also it's quite heavily defended. I meet a lot of teachers who tell me, no, of course that's not only is that what we do, but we believe that's what we should be doing. That's the right way. So it can take quite a lot of work for me to shift the mentality, and often, they need to see it. Once they've seen the new approaches, the different approaches, they start to get on board. But the thing that has always baffled me is when I meet a teacher who says, that's how I learned. It should be fine for my students because that's how I learned. That does kind of throw me for a loop sometimes. You shouldn't be this good at English if that's how you learn. I start making assumptions in my, well, this must have been happening and there must be a reason. I mean, how are you so good at English if that's how you learn? Did it work for you, or were you doing something else at the same time?
That's a very good question. Yeah, but I guess so. Now, I'm not sure when people say that's the way I learn. Maybe they're not like 100% not. I mean, not honest, but maybe they didn't see other stuff.
Yeah, that's my assumption.
Yeah, so in the way they remember things. So, for example, like I also thought like we did. So I was lucky. I went to a state school, and it was a Spanish school. So basically, Spanish and English. Spanish is my first like foreign language, and English was my second. But basically, both were the most important subjects. And like, okay, you can fail biology. They would, give you like a good grade anyway if you're good at Spanish or English or something like that. And no PE, of course. So like linguist, a super linguist. Yeah, and but I remember doing a lot of translation, for example, in Spanish as well. And in English, but I also remember a lot of authentic texts. I remember learning, lots of like vocabulary from there. I remember like now I like remember teachers like actually pointing a lot of vocabulary. We had authentic reading. We had like a native speaker something like back in like, and in Spanish, so it was like a culture club or something. It was like an exchange that teachers did. And in English, we had lots of dialogues. We had lots of role plays. We even had like it was already like it was like late 90s, so we had a book called Project English. I think no teachers know. We haven't heard. It's Tom Hutchinson, I think. He also did either Headway or something. So he's another. And I remember, like for us, it was like this small TV, like black huge thing, and there's like this great English guy telling us about London, So I was lucky with the school. But yes, the mainstream approach would have been like translation, but still there was so much else. And now, as I'm teaching beginners, I'm now also thinking that I remember like. For me, at some point, translating was a no-no thing. Maybe even like after CELTA, when they say you are not supposed to kind of use your L1 in class. And I remember disliking translations myself very much. And but then back then, like now, I'm bringing back some translation in some sort of way in class because that works. Because sometimes people really want the direct translation of what they say in Russian. And they need to see how it works in English because it's a different set of words or phrase or meaning. Right. So I'm just wonder. Yeah, I wonder also like with those. I mean, there is always somebody in charge of the curriculum, and how and if the curriculum like I'm surprised or that in Indonesia is the same. Yeah, quite formal. Yeah, and a lot of like kind of syllabus and because if do they see the progress that the students make? So why?
I mean, I don't. So I work in the schools, and I can tell you when I go into their classrooms, no progress is being made. But they will often tell me the progress is being made. So we're sometimes just looking at the same students and seeing something very different.
Hmm.
And so, there's something about that that perhaps I'll never fully understand. Some of it might be that I'm missing something because I am an outsider. I'm coming to the school. I'm not a permanent member of the faculty, for example. So this could be that I'm missing something. I'm not getting the full picture. It could be some self-defense on the part of the teacher, trying to kind of justify themselves. I think it's more about just different perspectives in terms of what they would call progress and what I would call progress. So what I think is the case is when I'm looking for progress, I'm looking for communicative progress, right? Proficiency, fluency, those kind of things. And because the system is so formal and the teachers are so bathed in that whole system, when they're looking for progress, they're looking for higher scores and better grammatical, doing better on the tests, doing better at the things that they're being taught. And so they are making progress in terms of memorizing more grammatical rules. If that's what you call progress, then they're making progress. For me, because that's not what I want them to be doing, I don't really call that progress in the context that I'm looking for. And as I said, that's one of the things that becomes very difficult when I'm working with these teachers and trying to shift the whole mindset from you're kind of looking at the wrong thing. Instead of looking over here, you need to be looking over there. We need to be focused on something entirely differently. If we're teaching language, we're not teaching linguistics, right? They're two different things. Learning English and learning English linguistics are not the same thing. So I think that it's that shift in perspective is perhaps why we can see two very, very different pictures.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. How you measure. Yeah, assessment is always an interesting topic.
Right. Exactly.
And
Yeah. Go on.
sorry, I was curious, if you don't mind me asking, about if in Russia we study Russian quite formally at schools, and we
Mm,
do a lot of linguistic work. Like we studied, like not the way we study foreign language, but we studied real hard, and
right.
as the amount of hours is the same for English and Russian. At least it was in my school. So, and I know that in England, so like English people don't study English that much formally as we do with Russian. And what about Indonesia? Do
Yeah.
they study
Well,
Indonesian?
yeah.
How is
I
it?
think there's a bit to say about both of them, really. I mean, this is one of the things that. So I endorse and take a very communicative approach to teaching. And as we've already discussed, as we've been talking about, just I'm very firmly trying to move teachers away from the grammar-oriented approach to language teaching. Um, but I get into the occasional bit of controversy because I think it shouldn't be controversial, but apparently it is. I think that teachers, if you're an English teacher, then you should have a good command and a good awareness and understanding of the English grammar. If you don't know the grammar well, I just think that's important. That's not to say that you should be explicitly teaching it, but you should know it. And one kind of response that often comes back to that is, well, as native speakers don't study English, they don't study grammar, so why should the non-natives? And well, the sentiment I agree with. I don't want the non-natives to be studying explicit grammar. But actually, I don't know why so many people seem to have forgotten this from their own childhood. But the fact is, in England, when as an English child growing up in England and going to an English school in England, we learn grammar. We have English classes, and we learn our own grammar. The difference is, by the time we're learning grammar in school, we're already fluent in English, right? You get to fluency between kind of 5 and 7 in your native language, and then we go to school and we start learning grammar probably, I don't know, sort of 10, 11 onwards, something like that. So by the time you're learning grammar in school, you're already fluent. And so it's not that grammar needs to be completely sidelined, completely abandoned, but fluency should come before grammar. And so that's something so many English teachers from England just seem to have forgotten this part of their childhood. It's like, you did study English
It's a
grammar.
very short part. For how many years do you do that? Because I will never forget my Russian lessons at school. Oh my God, I was so
Yeah,
bad.
that's it. I don't know, but I think I mean it's funny because when you're when you're an L1 speaker, it's all relative. Anybody who's not Russian looks at Russian and thinks, "My gosh, that's the most complex language." So of course it would, but then you're Russian, so it shouldn't be as difficult for you as it would be for. But I don't know. I mean, I think in England. Yeah, I think we don't spend a lot of time on it, and our English lessons are split between language and literature, and we spend a lot of time, more time on literature than we do on language, I think. And for me, individually, when I spent most of my time really getting into English grammar at A level when I chose English language as a subject, and at that point you're basically doing an intro to linguistics. You know, at the A level, you move into sociolinguistics and history of language and things like that. And so that's where I got my kind of deeper study into language and into grammar, which I wouldn't have got from regular school. That is true, but you learn. It's not, you spend a fair amount of time learning English grammar in England. So I don't know. People seem to have forgotten that. So here in Indonesia, or as an EFL teacher, I want to keep both. I want to keep that in mind. And once students start to get to a more upper intermediate advanced kind of level, then I'm quite comfortable to spend a little bit more time talking about grammar because they're close to fluent, and I think that's the way to do it. At that point, when you've got somebody who's gone that far and they've actually made that kind of progress where they are now becoming fluent, they're usually also the people who they are the students that are interested in the language on those other levels. They have questions to ask about the grammar, and so I'm very happy kind of going down that line with them. As for learning Indonesian, their own language, it's very formal. They spend a lot of time in their literature lessons as well. So they have Indonesian literature, and they spend a lot of time on kind of formal poetry styles and not a particularly creative approach. I've observed a fair few Indonesian lessons here now, and it's a lot of just the creativity of it is all very restricted. Okay, write a poem, but it must be about this topic and, follow this format. And you end up the students are almost copying the poem that the teacher wrote, but switching some words in. And of course, I'm not talking about every teacher. There are some fantastic teachers, but as a mainstream approach, that's what it's like.
It's like it sounds very, very similar to me. We have it's different items in the curriculum, Russian and literature. And I think we had Russian for all so we have we call them 11, but they are basically 10 levels, 10 years of school.
Okay.
Yeah, we kind of most of schools skip the fourth year.
Okay.
At school. So it's 1, 2, 3, 5. So that was for me. So, I don't know. I don't really. Some schools do year 4, but anyway, we had Russian till the 11th year, and so it's for and a lot of syntaxes, and I basically it was linguistics. It's a lot of word analysis, and so it's really, really hard to forget for me.
Right, yeah.
And we do literature. We also study poems and write poems, and that's interesting. That I actually I can see. So the embassy of Indonesia is right out of my
really?
Wow. Very
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I might pop in and ask them more about it.
Yeah, give them a little wave.
Okay.
Oh, great. So I want to couple of things as well about your background then. So you started studying psychology and then moved into language teaching. Was that did you change your mind, or did one lead naturally into the other, and what's the story there?
I would say was the story I shouldn't have chosen psychology in the first place, I guess. And for me it was I liked languages. I enjoyed everything we did apart from Russian. For some reason, I don't know. Russian was so much harder for me, but basically I think that because maybe we studied so much linguistics there, not the language itself, and we did more language work with the other languages. I really wanted to take after my grandfather. My grandfather is a neurosurgeon,
Oh,
He was, yeah, and I think since like I was a child, I always wanted to become a neurosurgeon. I read lots of books on biology and how the brain
wow.
works and everything. And my mother, being a daughter, of neurosurgeons, she really never wanted that for
I
me.
see. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
like she was always kind of like try to dissuade me, like gently, like push me away from that. So basically, I guess, and we were maybe one of the experimental schools in Moscow. When I was at my eighth year at school, we already had a psychologist at school, a
Okay.
very young girl. She was a uni student, so like doing some practice there.
Okay.
She was our she graduated from the same school, so we kind of knew her. She was like this. Young adults we could always, come to and speak about our
Right. Okay.
problems or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
somebody,
Okay.
spend time. And she did cool stuff with us. I really enjoyed what she did. And for me, like psychology is maybe the closest thing to, again, to neurosurgery, because it's about brains,
Yeah.
people in some wicked way.
Very
Yeah,
different approach to the same piece of material, right?
yeah. Maybe I don't know. Yeah. So and I really enjoyed it. And I always thought that, like, I mean, for me, it's like, when you have, like, when you live in this small ideal world, maybe. So I used to think that everybody speaks languages, because I mean, in our school, everybody spoke them, two languages,
Okay.
like,
Okay.
well. And I didn't know that other people, don't speak English when they finish school.
Right. Okay.
Right, yeah. And I also like language is something practical, something, and
Yeah.
I wanted, at some point I wanted to be a math teacher, by the way. I was very good at maths at
Oh
school.
yeah. Well, not me.
Yeah.
Not me.
So I like that. Yeah. So and yeah, and I think like um my third year university, I realized I don't this I like it massively. So I think it's very useful because we don't I don't know, it's being like learning to be a teacher here, you don't get a lot of practical psychology.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
get
Same
a
here.
lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
background knowledge. I mean, psychology is a very good stuff for background knowledge.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, and after university, I worked a little bit with kids. And again, like there, I started teaching English. So I was more of a psychologist, but then and
Mm-hmm.
they needed an English teacher, and like it's always, oh, I need you to speak English. We need an English teacher.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, work out the maths. And yeah, and then I also worked and trained to be a business trainer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I worked there a little bit, and there was a colleague, and he spoke English really well too, and I kind of missed, this experience of speaking English. And
Mm-hmm.
one day we were like having a tea, or I don't know, whatever we were having, and we're like, you like English, I like English, you miss English, I miss English. Why? And you're a trainer, I'm a trainer. Why don't we, set up something in English, about English? And then we started running like a club or a game club, a speaking club,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we did it for a year, maybe 2 years. And then he realized, he said, like, I like being a business trainer. I don't want to be an English teacher. And I realized,
Okay.
I really want to be an English teacher. I don't want to be a
Right.
business trainer. So that's the story.
Okay.
And then I applied for a job, and they didn't accept me, and they said that CELTA would massively help you. And
Right.
okay, I did my CELTA, and here I am.
Okay. So do you find now as a teacher, do you find that the psychology study was valuable for the teaching? I find that the longer I spend in teaching, the more interested I am in educational psychology and in development psychology. Do you find that what you studied there helps you as a teacher?
Again, my university was a scientific university, so
Right.
unfortunately, I
So
didn't have too many practical subjects. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
more
yeah.
about research and data analysis and stuff like that. So I enjoyed everything. And the interesting thing is, maybe it's me, but the memory thing, yeah. So I don't really remember much from university.
Right.
And I don't really remember much from school either, because like now, as I'm teaching Russian, I don't remember Russian grammar at all, having
Okay.
studied it for
Okay.
10 years at school.
Sure.
So yeah, so
I mean,
it's again about practical things. So I think when you don't apply
yeah,
something,
that's exactly right. Yeah,
it's
the fact that
like,
you said it wasn't a very practical approach, I'm not surprised you don't remember much of it. I mean, that's one of the main things that I try to develop with the teachers that I work with, and certainly in my own teaching, is to make it as applied as possible. When we're applying the learning, obviously we just remember it so much longer and so much better, and so much teaching here, and I think around the world really, is not applied. It's very abstract, it's very theoretical, and it's no surprise that as soon as the students have taken their exam and they've got the score that they needed to get, it's all gone. And it's the same for me. After I left school, you know, I remember very little of the theory that we studied in school, but the more practical a subject is, the more you remember it, I think. And I think that that's, it's just such a wasted opportunity that you can have, you know, 6 years with a group of students, and then they're not going to remember so much of it. It seems like 6 lost years, you know.
But then again, I don't know, maybe there is something that I do because of that, but I just don't remember it somewhere, you know.
Quite possibly, yeah.
It might be that.
Yeah.
I definitely know that maybe my like interpersonal skills, so like the way I establish rapport with my students, the way I ask questions, there is definitely something there. Yeah. So, and it's easier for me, like when I want to read about something, it's easier for me to find like a book on psychology, because I kind of know, I don't know which authors are more reliable, or maybe something, maybe. But now for my program for teachers, for the second year of this program, I invited a person who knows about psychology much more than I do, and we have practical psychology for teachers, because basically, like it's a bit underrated, I guess. Yeah, so I think we should know more about our learners and about ourselves as well.
Yeah, and just about what learning is. I think there's, you know, we're just, I think, beginning to find out more and more that the approaches we've taken to learning for decades, almost centuries now, turns out that's not how learning works in real terms. So we're doing the wrong thing, and in many cases we're doing the opposite of what works. You know, we're going counter to what the brain processes are, and the more that teachers know about that, I think the better it will be for everybody. But it seems to be very, as you say, underrated, underdeveloped. So yeah, I think it's valuable to incorporate that into training, into the work that you do. You said you're teaching Russian now. Is that new for you? Is this the first time?
Yes, it's the no, it's not the first time. No, what am I saying? No, one of my previous jobs, so there was at some point, I'm an enthusiastic person, so at some point somebody said, "Oh, Anita, we have like a new Russian learner or student, who needs a teacher." And we had several teachers who did teaching Russian professionally, and they were kind of all busy or something, I don't know. So they needed somebody else, and they said, "Anita, would you like to do that?" And I think it was like the end of spring, and they needed the teacher for the end of summer. So I had a little bit of time to just, work out what to do and how to. And I said, yes, that's what I usually say.
Of course.
I think also, like, I wasn't exactly, like, it wasn't very maybe ethical thing to do, but I knew that the student was from the UK, and I thought, and he was absolute beginner, and I thought, okay, I'll practice English a little bit, at least that's what I'm getting out of this job. So definitely not a very ethical thing, but yeah, that was one of the reasons I decided to do that. I did a little course. It was an online course on teaching Russian, absolutely useless. Sorry. That was like what it was like. I study a lot, so this is in the top of useless educations I've ever got, and it was very theoretical, like extremely theoretical, absolutely not helpful to me in that case. And what I was surprised, and I'm still surprised now, it's my second attempt, and I've been doing now for a year, that some, like, magically the English teaching skills, like just the teaching skills, I guess, so not the knowledge about the language, but just the skills, they kind of don't transfer to, so like for me, they didn't transfer. So in English, I tend to do lots of things like intuitively. I don't really maybe know why at the moment, but basically when I analyzed after, I know why I did it. So in Russian, I'm like, okay, so what do I do next? So it's all like, again, like you're learning from scratch. And my previous experience was, I can't say it was a disaster, but I think I really would like to say it was a disaster. And I think it was a very sad experience, both for me and for my student. First of all, like, he didn't really have time to study Russian, and he didn't really need to, because not everybody speaks English, but he could get by basically. And he had like a top position in some company, So basically, he didn't need English for his job.
Yeah.
And and it was it was his first month in Russia. You know, he had like a new job,
It's
new place.
overwhelmed. Yeah, right. Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
so it's not the right time to learn the
Yeah.
language. And he was complaining to me, and that like I felt really embarrassed, because he complained to me that everybody so he wants to practice Russian, and everybody wants to speak English with him, yeah, because he's
Yeah.
English. And I was like, oh my God, I'm here for the very same reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and then I don't remember what happened, because I quit the company at some point. I don't remember what happened then. And it was very sad, because it was I mean, I guess for both of us, because I also, like with the course books, Russian course books, they tend to be not very communicative either. So there is, so again, I guess, like for me in English, like at least here in my teaching context, everybody mostly agrees, yeah, so the majority of students are learning English for communication, so that some kind of communication should be at least, you know, the prevailing in the classroom. Yeah, so
right.
let's put it like this. But in Russian, if you look, if you speak Russian and you look at any Russian teaching groups, there will be mostly, so the majority would still think so that Russian is a very grammatical language, and you should start with studying all the grammar. This is what I used to think about, like, you know, comparing English and Russian. So with English, it's very kind of easy to start because basically you learn a couple of words, you learn MAZR, and okay, you're good to go.
Right.
You can produce correct sentences, you know.
Yes.
And in Russian, you need to know the cases, like German.
Right.
Yeah, we have cases.
How many cases do you have? Some crazy.
It depends, actually.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, there's there's a little bit of disagreement. We have like main cases, and then there is basically some discussion in there with the additional ones. So and also, like, we also conjugate the verb. Like in Spanish, for example, we have like the same number, 6 forms, and we have this polite form. Yeah, so there is lots of stuff, but now, why I'm teaching Russian now, we're experimenting. It's a very long experiment for a year now, but we're still experimenting with Andrew Walkley. You met with Hugh Della the other day.
Yeah.
So they're both authors of Teaching Lexically. And the Outcomes book. So last year Andrew was doing a seminar here in Russia, in Krasnoyarsk, and I was there. We're having a beer in a bar later after one of his training days, and so somebody said, like, you can't teach Russian lexically, and we're like, why not? And then we started talking, and here we are now. Experimenting. This experience is absolutely different for me, because basically I realized you can start speaking Russian from the very first.
I mean, it strikes me that you must be able to. I mean, one of the things that I do, I suppose the foundation really of what I do in language teaching, and then trying to extrapolate from this principle into other subjects, but with the language in particular, is to try and spend more time following the acquisition process, trying to recreate acquisition in the classroom. And, you know, whatever language you speak, whether it's English or the slightly more structured European languages, or something like Russian or Turkish, or something like, you know, the Chinese languages, whatever language you speak, no matter how complex it might be, babies still learn the same way, right? Every baby learns their language lexically. No, even Russian children are not studying cases and grammar at sort of, you know, 18 months of age, right? So, I mean, there's got to be that lexical approach. It has to be there. There has to be a way of doing it.
I would still like, because I think we need some research, but still, like, babies and adults will learn differently.
Of course, sure.
Yeah, but also, I guess, with the amount of time we have for learning the language. So a Russian baby being raised in Russia would hear much more Russian than Andrew being in London. Yeah, so maybe that would be the first thing.
I tend to think that that's the biggest factor. Yeah.
So but what's so basically what you said earlier today. So what we're kind of doing with the lexical approach, I think that's the same pattern. So at the moment when student has enough material, like enough language in their head, we could actually have a look at the structure.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So at some point, yeah, so he would ask me, okay, I can see like similar pattern here, what it is, and that's
Right.
like this genitive case. Yeah,
Right.
one of our 6 main cases. Yeah, so and like tell him a little bit about that. So yeah, so basically, kind of you can follow the learner, and basically you give them the structure. I don't know, as an adult I also like structure. I like grammar charts
Yes.
as a
Yeah.
learner.
That's it. Right. Yeah. Well, it's no surprise you're a language teacher, right?
Yeah, so and this works, and well, like first I guess the first thing for me was to let go of this idea. So I guess maybe where the problem lies with the Russian, teaching Russian. Yes, so that teachers would normally expect correct sentences, even when they're kind of trying not to focus on grammar. Yeah, but basically
Yeah.
in Russian, if you're trying to experiment with language, it's practically impossible to produce a correct sentence, because when you change,
Right.
I don't know, the word order, the cases change. And yeah, so with English, I think in the beginning it's a bit easier, yeah, to
Yeah.
follow like pattern,
Yeah.
because
Right.
yeah, the endings
Yeah.
they
Sounds like that's probably true. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But and lots of Russian teachers are concerned with fossilized mistakes, you know. So like
Right.
you
Of
teach them
course. Yeah.
now, but they always forget all kind of endings. I can't say that my student would repeat, you know, the same mistake all the time. No, there's no chance, because they're always changing, you know, those endings. And at
Right.
least like now he knows that, and he can feel now like he changed the preposition and says, yeah, there should be something different, yeah. And he
Right.
might play, and sometimes he would guess.
You've
Yeah,
got 6 to choose from, right? So I'll try that one. That's not right. You
oh,
know.
no, you have more than 6.
Right.
It's so easy. No, there's lots of, you know, where the words that don't follow the pattern and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of
so
course. Right.
like yeah, so but basically this, I would say this is it. The first thing to let go, this you know, maybe control thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the
Another thing as well, just on the same point there, this idea of accuracy. So this is another thing in see how this compares to between English and Russian, perhaps, because the accuracy is a goal, but fluency is the kind of the primary goal, right? And if somebody can communicate fluently and intelligibly, that's more important than accuracy. But of course, we all hold accuracy up as kind of the ultimate goal on some level. But in English, you can make a lot of mistakes and a lot of grammatically inaccurate sentences, and yet still be understood. With everything that you said about Russian, formulating an accurate Russian sentence sounds like it might be a very difficult thing to do. There might be a lot of mistakes that can be made, but is it still communicative? Is it still understandable if I make a mistake and I choose the wrong word endings and I get the wrong, but someone can still understand me, presumably?
I mean, it depends how many mistakes you will make. Yeah. So I mean, it's not about I don't think that if the student produces say incorrect language, but this is something we never, you know, talked about, something we didn't learn, so it's not a mistake, right? It's experimenting.
Yes. Yeah.
So the mistake is only, I don't know, I explained this 1,000 times and there's still, you know, so this would be maybe more of a mistake to me. No, that's the same here, basically. I mean, it's maybe the endings are maybe in a way like articles, you know, they sometimes change. That's, I mean, there can be communicative situations where the article is like super important, and
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, but then again, the general context might help or something. So I would say the endings are they're not conveying that much meaning. Yeah, but but sometimes you can just earlier today we had a lesson, and so he was speaking about his friend, a woman, and like something, and then he said the word like did or went or something, but he used them like masculine ending.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if he's speaking about himself already or still about the friend. So I just asked again. Yeah, there can be,
right,
but that's manageable. I guess our like the thing with fluency, I'm still not sure myself. I have some students, and I guess like every teacher has them, who are super fluent and super inaccurate, and there is nothing can be done there. Most of them don't really care. I mean, so that's their choice if they're adults. It doesn't sound, I don't know, it doesn't sound horrible to me. Maybe because I'm not like a teacher initially, so I came to teaching later. For me, why English? Because I'm and not Spanish, yeah, or I don't know, just happened. So anyway, for me, English helped me, like, discover this amazing world, let's say, but sounds posh. But I started doing lots of international volunteer projects. And basically at that time, my English was maybe B2, maybe something like that. So I learned a lot of English like there as well, but it like also opened the world, that you can communicate. So for me, communication was first. That's why I chose to teach English. So people, could go out of their, familiar space and discover the world. So that's why, to me as well. Yeah. So first, if you have something to say, and if the message is interesting, people would listen to you, no matter how many mistakes you make, no matter like how you sound, if your voice is too high or too low, pronunciation, whatever. So if people don't like you, I mean, that's the other thing, that nobody even speak very good language, but that they don't like you, or maybe your topic is boring. Yeah. So, but you speak very accurately. So it really depends on the context, but still, there is this thing that for like, maybe fast speakers like I am, it's always fluency over accuracy. Yeah, where it's just faster. But of course, if you have, there's still I don't know, maybe it's a bit different for natives and non-natives still. I don't really know. But if you hear somebody making mistakes, I think if I hear somebody who speaks Russian and I know they're not the native speaker, it's like, whoa, that's already
right. And also, I think there are some cultural differences there. I mean, I talked about this here in Indonesia. In my experience, it's been the case that, it's hard to say. I mean, you can talk on the country level and on the individual level, and of course there are lots of individuals who won't fit what I'm about to say. But I think in England, if somebody is speaking English and they're clearly an L2 speaker, and they make mistakes, they choose the wrong verb tense or something like that, then you will, I think, kind of meet them halfway. You'll fill in the gaps. You'll try and do the work in your head to understand what they're trying to say. And if something isn't clear, you'll either kind of work it out or you'll just ask. And so I think, I don't know, it seems to come relatively naturally to us in the UK to do that, to kind of meet them halfway. Where here in Indonesia, my experience learning Indonesian early on, for example, is if I just kind of mispronounced a word, I would be met with utter confusion because I, mispronounced the wrong vowel in a word or something like that, and it'd just be completely, oh, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to? Or a lot of laughter. Now, Indonesians as a people, they laugh a lot. They smile a lot. They laugh a lot. They are very friendly for that reason, but also it can come across as being, sort of quite disdainful if you make a mistake and the response is laughter. That's not particularly encouraging. And so I think there are some cultural differences there as well. It sounds like in Russia, perhaps the culture is a little bit more forgiving, maybe, as well.
Maybe just me. No, I think it's just like mainly, because maybe actually, there's also like a bit of a problem of like maybe again non-native language teachers, English teachers, because as like speaking English is more or less like a very common thing generally. Right. So when I speak English, and my English is good, I now being a teacher, I kind of know it is, but sure. I rarely hear somebody tell me, oh, Anita, your English is so good, because I mean, that's something that's expected from me.
Yeah. Right.
But for example, I also speak Spanish, and
People are amazed by that.
My Spanish used to be, better. And now it's definitely not. And but every time I speak Spanish, somebody says, "Wow, like Anita, hablas español muy bien." And like, yeah. But it's like it's very nice thing to hear.
Yeah, so, I should say actually, just because in case I come off a little bit unfair, perhaps I should also say that the Indonesians, you only really have to say 2 or 3 words in Indonesian, and they're amazed. So, oh wow, you speak Indonesian. And then when I was beginning to learn, when I'd just been here for a few weeks or so, you just kind of say a few words, a greeting or something like that, and then they would just launch off in entire conversations in Indonesian. And I go, no, those are the 3 words that I can speak. That's it. So I must, the other side of what I said, not to be unfair, is they're very kind of congratulatory as well. They're very impressed when you make the effort. And I think it was similar to what you said earlier when you were talking about one of your first students. A lot of the English-speaking expats here in Indonesia do not make the effort because they work in an international company with other expats. They live in a particular part of town where all the expats live. They use English for their work and their life all day, every day. They don't have any real need to learn Indonesian, even though they live here. And so they don't. And so when somebody does make the effort, it's well met. That's definitely true.
So it's like, I guess it's the same here, but I was like, now I follow several groups for teachers of Russian as a foreign language, and sometimes somebody like a very beginner teacher would ask a question about, like, again, maybe fluency over accuracy and stuff, and there's a lot of comments like, I mean, no, you should learn grammar first, because if you speak with mistakes, everybody will think you're stupid and nobody will want to talk to you. And so there is, I mean, these are teachers, and they're teachers who are, I guess, interested in professional development. That's why they follow this kind of group. So they're just not, that's my assumption. I don't know.
Haven't got there yet.
Yeah, but there's still quite a lot of that, I think. But I must be honest, I kind of, maybe a little bit arrogant or something. Yeah, so I don't. This time I wanted to do it my way, maybe like translating my experience of teaching English and into teaching Russian. Because basically there is no book for that. There is no Russian course book. So I try not to read too much about the way Russian is taught. So maybe, I'm now after a year, I think I'm ready to go that deeper. Yes, I definitely need to buy a book like a grammar for teachers, because at some point Andrew has become better at knowing cases than I am. Because for him, it's surprising how you don't really remember and you don't know how your language works. And at some point you forget, and but most times again it's not helpful. So there are some patterns, and we analyze several patterns with some prefixes, and sometimes there are some words that work in a different way. And it's and then really this question of why, or I need to continue. Oh my God. At some point I was no, I think I was about to start crying. And so Andrew doesn't ask me more questions. Because he knows.
But now that you've been running this experiment, if you like, and you've been trying to bring the lexical English approach into your Russian teaching, are you enjoying teaching Russian more now than you were the first time around? Do you think you'll ever become a Russian teacher? Is that your next career path, or?
I don't really know. So with my first stats student many years ago, I remember writing a post on Facebook I will never teach Russian again. So now I'm considering it. I'm really enjoying it, because it's I don't know. It's just emotionally different, I guess, when somebody is learning your language. Also, so I like teaching English because it brings people closer, because English is the language that we all use. But with Russians, I get a bit also to share my culture, maybe to break some stereotypes about Russian culture. And I do not think I will be teaching Russian. I don't really know. I'm still I'm overwhelmed with one student. That's enough for now, because now I kind of you can't do everything, because I'm now to have my program for teachers, so basically it takes all of my time. And the funny thing is that right now I have only one student, and this is Andrew, and I'm teaching him Russian. So when basically in the end of our talk I said I'm an English teacher, maybe I lied. Because I had to let go of all of my students, and maybe I'll come back in September. But it's totally different now. But you taught a little bit of not English as well, right?
It took a little bit of Indonesian. I've done it a couple of times. Usually it's been when I've had corporate English classes for a company, where I've been teaching English to the staff, and then they have a foreign CEO or a foreign director or something, and so the director wants to learn Indonesian. So I would never, would never kind of promote myself as an Indonesian teacher, but because I'm already in the institution or I'm already in the company and somebody wants it. So I've taught some beginner Indonesian to some newcomers, expats, foreigners. I've done a couple of those, and just use the lexical approach, which is very rare here anyway. So to walk into the classroom or more accurately their office, because I was teaching them in their office, probably to walk into their office and speak only Indonesian to them as soon as I walked through the door, they'd be a little bit taken aback, but they kind of get into the routine of it, and just like you do with English. And because they're living here and because they've got the motivation to learn so that they can communicate with their staff or whatever, it generally went quite well, but I never really went much beyond kind of elementary level learning, and because they didn't really want to either. By the time they'd reached enough to be able to kind of basically come to work, say good morning to their staff in the morning, kind of go and buy some food at the canteen or whatever, once they got to that point, they always sort of became increasingly busy, and they'd start postponing lessons until eventually the course would be over. So I never really got beyond teaching the elementary level, and I wouldn't be comfortable trying to teach at the intermediate level. I'm quite fluent in Indonesian, and I do translation work and things like that, but I don't think I would be comfortable teaching it much beyond kind of intermediate. I think that's a different thing.
Why not?
Because I'm quite fluent in Indonesian, but I know that there are a lot of inaccuracies when I speak. As a language, it's quite forgiving. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes the people are a bit less forgiving than the languages, so you might kind of be met with some confusion. But at the level I'm at now, it's very rare that I'll make a mistake that affects the communication. But I still make quite a lot of, inaccuracies, the wrong word endings or things like that. The Indonesian language is very kind of modular in that sense. There's a lot of morphology where you're putting bits of words together. And so I often make mistakes there. But it doesn't really cause too much trouble. But if I were to try to teach it at that level, I would certainly be teaching too many inaccuracies. I wouldn't be able to really avoid it. I think that once you get past the elementary, early, lower intermediate, I think that's probably the limit that I'd have there.
So like B2 from what you were saying?
Yeah. I mean, lower kind of the breakthrough kind of boundary, B1, B2 breakthrough, perhaps something like that. Be probably about as far as I'd want to go, really.
And still, did you feel differently like teaching English and Indonesian, or is it just me so emotional?
Really? No, I think because I very specifically took the decision that I was going to approach it the same way. I'd been teaching, by that point, I'd been teaching English for, I guess, 4 or 5 years maybe before I had my first experience of teaching Indonesian. And because at that point I was also just beginning to get into teacher training. So not only had I been teaching for 4 or 5 years in Indonesia, plus some kind of some teaching that I did in the UK before. And so I'd been an educator in one way or another for, I guess 5 or 6 years, something like that. And I was just beginning to start training. So I'd spent a lot of time thinking about teaching. I wasn't just teaching, I was thinking about teaching, I was writing about teaching. And so when I started teaching Indonesian, I kind of was very conscious of how I was approaching it, I think. So for me, I was just determined to teach Indonesian the same way that I had been teaching English. So I don't think there was much difference for me in that way now.
I see. So
I think you've mentioned your work with teachers, and I've mentioned it a couple of times there. You see in the background there, you've got your Teachers Teach Teachers board. So tell us a little bit about that.
I also have a bottle.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
New merch. This is also like, I guess, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, as I used to be a business trainer, and we taught a lot of goal settings and planning and stuff like that, and I was really into that. But last year I decided like I will just let it go, stop controlling things, because basically my plan for last year, for last autumn, was to start like maybe boutique English school, like a little English school for people who want to learn English, who are adults and like beginner elementary level. So my favorite, group for now. And but I decided like just to go with the flow. And it somehow happened that now after a year, I have like a center for English teachers, and we have around 220 students right now, teachers. So it all started with I tried actually to do a very similar thing about 5 years ago, but that didn't work. And spontaneously it worked last year. So the idea is like, I was basically, you know, when you're trying to do your own business and you start doing a course and they tell you like you should describe your target audience, you should, you know, so that annoying stuff where I don't know who they are, where they eat, I don't know what Instagrams they follow. So I've never done those yet, you know what I mean.
Actually I only just did it, really actually kind of sat down and did it for the first time literally a week ago, and I must admit I found it really enlightening. I'd never really done it before. I just had this very amorphous idea in my head, and I thought, no, I don't need to sit down and write it because I know. And when I sat down, literally a week ago, because I was doing setting up an online platform, I literally sat down for the first time and started writing out the sentences. I actually found it quite enlightening. It was really, really opened my eyes a little bit. I must admit that was surprisingly useful for me, I thought.
I agree, it is useful, but I guess maybe for me, because I try different projects and different things, so I didn't really know my audience back then. But like basically this project was designed for me, so I'm basically the persona I'm basing this.
Sure.
So this is the easiest way, And first of all, it's good, so at least one person is happy, you know, at least you have one customer.
If you can reach one person, that's what they say.
And so I realized that as an English teacher, I don't actually speak English much. And I started speaking more, but yet again, it's conferences, maybe talks like about work like this, and I love speaking about job. But sometimes, for example, we speak about art with my students, and as a teacher, of course, I contribute, but I can't really share everything I want to say about art or science or I don't know, the news or discuss some films. I don't have this space because it's either the classroom or a conference where you meet people, but basically normally you speak about lexical coach or CELTA or something, and we don't have it. And how can I actually teach my students if I never had those conversations myself? But basically the first reason is very selfish. I just want to tell my stories because I have loads of them and I want to share them, and I want to improve my English. So I think when you're learning a language, you'll be doing it forever. Because there will always be some more natural language that you can learn, and there's always like some maybe like fossilized tiny mistakes that you have. And if you don't have other teachers around, nobody will ever correct you.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true.
And so basically my first idea was just to have a group of teachers take the Outcomes Advanced book and like kind of work through it together. But then also, like, I've been working with freelancers. So in Russia, being a freelancer, like a private teacher, is a very popular thing because it's a very easy thing to do. It doesn't so the taxes are quite low. And you don't always have to pay taxes, let's say it like this. So if you choose to do that, they're very, very low. And lots of teachers do that. So there's a huge market of freelance teachers. And I've been working with freelancers for a while, telling like how to set up your business, how to pay taxes, and like business and legal stuff. And and I realized that again, as a freelancer, what I missed, that even like as teachers work, I don't really know what happens in other teachers' classrooms. So I talk to you, for example, but I will never know what you do in your class. Maybe something really opposite, and you know, it's filling all the time, or I don't know really how you do that. So I'd like to see. That's a very interesting thing to do. And nobody will actually know. Again, I'm a freelancer. Nobody supervises my classes.
Just to sorry to interrupt. I mean, I found the same. I've been teaching freelance one way or another for about probably 7 or 8 years now. The last time I was teaching in a formal institution, you know, with an organization and a hierarchy, was like a long time ago. And even when I was teaching at the university, which is just over a year ago, I was kind of given a very free rein. You know, I was just kind of told, you go do what you want to do, which was great. But it means, I've not had any real formal supervision for a very long time. I know what that's like.
You're welcome.
Right.
No, so that's one of also the reasons, because at some point, of course, maybe observation is something that everybody's dreading, but we secretly want it as well. So pleasure. I mean, but we want to know what we do and somebody to appreciate the effort, because our students like us, but they don't really know what we're doing there for them. They can't. What I like about like teaching Andrew as well, because it's one-to-one, and he really
can give you that kind of feedback.
Like neat or something. So basically, that was like a group of like ideas like going through my head, and I didn't really know somebody would be interested. I just wanted one like group for myself in Moscow, and like there was also a friend who was interested, and he wrote a post about it. And so the idea was that he would write a post, and I would like come up like with a subscription form or something like to find this group. And then the first like night, about 60 teachers applied and registered their interest, let's say. And they're like, oh my God, so it's a bit, and most of them were not from Moscow. And like I had a feeling like I can't tell them, sorry, it's a Moscow-based thing. And I thought, okay, I can organize a group for myself in Moscow, and I can do some online groups. And so we had 2 groups in Moscow, and we had like 4 online groups, or so in the end. So it all like started like that. Then I went away for about a month, and I was kind of hoping that it they will just stop doing whatever they're doing, and I could open my school in September. And when then I came back, like they were still doing it. So the idea is that basically we take the course book, we have a group of teachers studying together, 10 is maximum, and each month one person from this group becomes a teacher for this particular group with using the same book. So we have one lesson per week, a 90-minute lesson. So basically that was the initial idea. And we all study, we enjoy the process. We have somebody guiding us through the book, and one person, but then like for 9 months you are free, because the other 9 teachers will you as well. So, and also in the end of each lesson, the teacher can ask about some feedback, but basically sometimes in the middle of the lesson, even like, guys, I wasn't sure, about this exercise.
That's great.
Just interrupt, so it's not a formal situation, because your students know, your teaching context here, so it's totally all right to ask sometimes when you feel that you need or something. So so in a year it turned out in like a more complex program, I would say. So basically now it's a program for 3 years, because again it's based on outcomes. And if you teach with these books, you know that there is so much language that even in 3 years, when you teach once a week, so like with the year and a half we did it twice. So like very regular schedule. So of the book, and with the same idea, but now we're also something that I really enjoy and maybe particularly proud of. We are helping the teachers of the month. We call them teachers of the month. Who are doing the teaching, prepare for those lessons, because mostly the teachers who join the project, they are amazing enthusiasts. But for most of them, for the majority of them, for me as well, as I'm the persona we're basing this on, I'd never taught advanced or like proficient learners before. It's something I won't ever do. I don't feel like teaching a proficient group of language users or even advanced. I don't know. So most of them teach only kids or teenagers. So it's like a really totally new experience. And I don't really know much about the lexical approach, for example, and how to work with this particular person. So we are preparing them on top of everything that we have. So we start their preparation like in a month. So like they join the specific chat where I have like colleagues who take care of them, and we have several like CELTA trainers on on my team, who help as well, and I'm always there. And we have 5 meetups for them where we plan lessons together. So this is
brilliant.
It's a very unique context. I'm sorry I'm bragging, but I really like it.
No, it's brilliant.
Because I imagine that we're teaching the same pages with you like tomorrow, and today we could go over these pages. You share your ideas, what you want to do, I share mine, know, and we and if we're, for example, I'm not sure about some language like usage, I could ask my colleagues, or about some exercise. So we do the planning together. We also have like an input session. One of these meetups, Hugh or Andrew join our teachers, and also you can have some contribution from the authors of the book you're working with. And, so we have 5 of these. So we have 5 because 4 of them are to prepare the lessons, and the final one is to summarize and reflect on your experience. So this is a special more, and we also have a special module with video, how to work with feedback. Yeah, so everything that's important for the project, but basically for the teaching thing. And yeah, and we also have like webinars, speaking clubs for the broader community. So basically that's, and just like yesterday, I was reading a book on like advising and supporting teachers. So because teacher like development is something I'm now into. Maybe that's why I'm not going to be an amazing Russian teacher I could have become, but now teacher training maybe is more interesting.
More of a focus, yeah.
Yeah, and I realized that I mean, it's just the second year, so we're planning it on the go because it's all started quite spontaneously. So our first year is more about the you know, showing the ropes and the beginning of the some lexical approach. Second year is call it practical psychology and more on the lexical approach. And I know now that third year, because we'll be finishing the book, will be about materials development, because I really like to develop materials and then give them to teachers to teach each other, to test those materials on each other, and maybe profession and yeah, like teacher development. Yeah, because by now, by the third year, they would have, you know, already had like certain experience of analyzing other teachers' lessons and giving feedback. So we guess there will be a little bit more input there, and we could, you know, by the end of this project, the teachers will be able to maybe choose from what they like to focus on or to work, I don't know, as directors of studies and advising, maybe supporting
right others. Okay, yeah, sure.
So in a nutshell.
Oh, brilliant. Wow. Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, it's definitely a unique approach. There's a couple of things there. I mean, the idea of them planning together in a group, I think, is brilliant. It's something that because I work with schools, so I work with the whole faculty in a school. So it might be, you know, some of the bigger schools that I work with, they have, you know, 60, 70 teachers on the faculty. And so in any subject, they've got 4 or 5 teachers for one subject. And I always find in that context that the staff room, the teacher's room, is such a wasted resource because, you know, teachers never talk to each other about teaching. They're either gossiping about the students that they don't like, or they're sat there silently. And you've got a room full of other teachers, experienced teachers, and nobody's sharing their experience or anything. And so I always, whenever I'm working with a school, I always try to get the teachers to be doing more together and planning in groups, especially, you know, when they're teachers from the same subject, to get together at least once a week and either plan together or review each other's lesson plans together. And the school that I'm working with right now, I was impressed when I first got there because it sounded like they were doing that. Oh yeah, the English teachers all plan together, the maths teachers all plan together. Oh, brilliant. I've never come to a school where that's the case before without me having to instill it. So I was impressed by that. And then I later found out that what was actually happening was each week one teacher plans the lesson for all the teachers, and they all just kind of take turns planning that. So, yeah, that's not really what I'm looking for. So I think that's a brilliant approach that you're taking.
Thank you. The teachers are enjoying it. Where like it's a little bit hard again when because all classes are different. So basically, I designed the pacing guide, but now it's like we're I don't know. We'll see if it works. Yeah, because there's like this group didn't have enough time for listening. So what they do, they skip the listening, or they do it the next time. You know, it's like right. Go in the same, you know, at the same pace together for 3 years. We'll see. So it's all very experimental. And I was surprised, like in this spring, like a guy whose native language is English, he also joined us. We were like, oh wow, that's interesting. And he said like, yeah, because he was interested like in the talk, because basically he doesn't also get a chance to talk about this stuff, you know, and also of course the observations and etc. So
that's it. I mean, I find it's difficult as a teacher to find a community of teachers who think and talk and are interested in teaching. So I work in schools with large faculties of, you know, dozens of teachers in a faculty. But the reality is, and this I find quite saddening. This is, I think of this as a problem. Teachers, the majority of the teachers that I meet, at least, they don't really think about what they're doing. They don't think about teaching. They teach. It's their job to teach. They're kind of going through the motions. They're not really kind of analyzing, assessing, evaluating what they do on the kind of level, you know, this conversation that you and I are having now. There's kind of an idealistic part of me that thinks, oh yeah, this is what all teachers should be, having these kinds of conversations. You know, because that's what I think teaching should be, is a very kind of a philosophical, passionate kind of, you shouldn't be a teacher, or how could you be a teacher if you're not really, you know, passionate about teaching and learning and education? But the reality is, you know, a lot of teachers aren't. For a lot of teachers, where especially in a country where I am, you know, where there's just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of teachers around the country for tens of millions. You know, I mean, it's a population here of over 300 million. I think around 300 million people. So there's just so many schools, so many teachers, and for a large percentage of them, it's just a job. It's not some special life calling. You know, that my idealism there has been tempered somewhat over the years, as I realize, you know, not all teachers do approach it that way. And so for me, you know, I often find it difficult to find a group of teachers with whom I can have these kinds of conversations.
You're welcome.
There it is. There it is. Yeah.
Anytime. No, seriously. I think I have a feeling that, again, I might be rather idealistic, but in Russia, we have like a really great community of teachers. Like, I'm not speaking about my program, but basically there are lots of teachers. I actually, like, we always speak about our job. We always speak about teaching.
Okay.
So we have to learn not to speak about, you know, teaching.
Right. Okay.
So even like we're discussing like something in the book because I studied in one of the groups, and every time like we tend to like, oh no, let's go back to the topic. Enough speaking about teaching. So that also might be a problem. But what you said made me also think that because I'm not trained to be like a teacher trainer, because I'm not a teacher trainer. It's something like that. When I was a business trainer, I had trainees, etc. It's a similar experience, but still different.
Yeah.
And what I was surprised by two things. I don't know if it's the same, maybe in Indonesia, maybe you saw it somewhere as well. So first of all, for some reason in Russia, like teachers are kind of taught not to follow the course books the way they are. Say they would mess this all up, you know, start finalize, they go first. And basically, like, even like when we're planning this, they would, like, you know, add, so for example, outcomes is packed with material.
Right.
And so I never add anything much,
Right,
you know, there, apart from personal input and I don't know, maybe a very occasional article when it's like totally necessary to share or something. But they would actually like design their whole lesson, their whole material just around the topic is there. That's the first thing. But the second thing that is more maybe worrying as well is that some of them, they can't explain why they do this.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think certainly in Indonesia, the trend is to just follow the book, but I mean, very much just kind of turning the pages. It really is just from the beginning of the lesson to the end of the lesson. It's just kind of doing exercises in the book, and then the next page and another exercise. So that's really taking it to the extreme, where I would like to see a little bit more deviation away from the book, because it's just not engaging the students. They are just sitting, completing, filling in pages in the book, you know. So one of the things I often am working with teachers do is to say, how can we get this out of the book? How can we get the students' faces out of the book for 10 minutes, you know, and turn it into an interactive activity, turn it into something practical, because that's often missing. But no, I mean, I talked about this with Hugh just last week or a couple of weeks ago. This is something we talked about. Obviously, he's an author, so we talked about this there, and yeah, I think I might have a little bit more of a loose relationship to textbooks than you, perhaps, certainly than Hugh as well. But I think I've been working to find the happy medium. I spend a lot of time with teachers on trying to just help them develop the creativity to create materials. But then I also want to rein in some teachers who are asking, okay, so how do I design a curriculum? Well, you don't. You know, the curriculum design is not an easy thing. That it's not something that a teacher can just do. It's its own field of study. And so I think there's, you know, you've got to kind of rein in the wild ideas of writing your own curriculum and writing your own syllabus, but then exercise a little bit more creativity than just turning pages in the book for 45 minutes and then the bell rings. Somewhere in the middle there must be a happy medium, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So it also depends on the context and the book, I guess.
Yes,
but,
yeah, of course, yeah.
But like, so I, like, now as I'm teaching Russian and I don't have a course book, I appreciate course books even more because it saves a lot of time. So now I spend like twice, I mean, I need practically the same amount of time to prepare for the lesson and
Sure,
to
yeah.
teach it.
Yeah, I
So
imagine, yeah.
yeah, and I guess like I'm all for course books in the way that if it's a good course book, it saves you time and the
Yeah.
topic interesting. So that's why I really like I like outcomes, because for me it works for me.
Right.
Like for me, every lesson is like full of interaction, just because the topics maybe are engaging for the teacher, and
Yeah.
that's why the students basically maybe because it's just really good topics relevant for my
Yeah.
students as well. So both.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to find textbooks that I was happy with. I spent a long time, teaching in various different schools where they had chosen this book, and that was the book for and they're often
Yeah.
books that I didn't like. There's a very kind of standard approach that so many textbooks take, where when you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all, and I often found them to be not particularly inspiring. But again, as I talked about with Hugh, it was when I found the National Geographic books, I guess about 2 or 3 years ago, was when I suddenly found a textbook that I could endorse. And the approach that they take is just so unique. It's very different from the standard ELT material format that almost every other publisher is putting together. Once you found a book that is that creative and that's that, then I can really get behind following the book in a more still not rigid, but just kind of using the materials that are there for you, because they're so much more valuable.
Yeah, and it's like if it's taking I think you said it somewhere as well, that it takes them like half a year for two of them just to write the book. So if I'm on my own, let's say it will take me a year. Like, and I'm not a material writer, material developer and a writer. So yeah, it's a lot of time, and
Exactly,
they're
right,
not
yeah.
teaching. And I think when they're writing, they're not like actually doing the teaching. So it's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And when I'm freelancer, nobody would pay me for this time. And still, yet again, okay, I can design like this. I can write this book. But yet again, when I'll be using it with a different student, it will be just like, why is my book better than? So I mean, there's lots of whys. But I was like, the question was like that sometimes the teachers change something in the book and they can't explain why they do this.
That's I agree. That's it. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that's been particularly important for me as I've been doing more teacher training, and as I've designed my own teacher training courses. The thing that I've strived to keep in focus, which in my opinion a lot of teacher training courses don't do, is to focus on the rationale behind a given decision. So I want, when teachers have graduated from one of my courses, or when they've spent time working with me in one capacity or another, my main hope is that when they leave me, they can go to their classroom and they can make decisions, they can do things for reasons, and they know why they're doing it, rather than what I think you get from a lot of training is you're told, kind of a fixed set of steps to follow. You should do this, and then you should do this, and if this happens, you do this. And the teachers kind of come out of it with a kind of a rote set of procedures to follow, but they don't really know why they do certain things, which means this is just kind of shallow, and I don't like that. It doesn't appeal to me. I like thinking about these things more deeply. But it also means that teachers are not then very well equipped to deal with unexpected situations in the classroom. When you go to the classroom, it's not the same every time, and whatever you learned on your course is not going to be replicated in every lesson and in every classroom with every group of students. And the minute that falls apart, teachers don't know what to do, because they didn't know why they were doing what they were doing anyway. And so that's been a focus for me in any of the training I've done, is I want teachers to be able to say, oh yeah, you showed us this, I'm going to do it that way for this reason, and you showed us this, and I think because as long as they can explain why they're doing what they're doing, I don't care if they never do what I showed them, if they never copy something I did, but they can tell me why they've done it a different way, why they're doing it their way. That's by far the more valuable outcome, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. And also what the teachers are asking from us now, so we're very democratic as it's like a co-learning environment where I'm guiding it a little bit, because the way maybe I shape it the way I want it to be. So for me to study as well, yeah, but I also listen to what everybody says. And interestingly enough, the teachers are asking on for some workshops on how to plan lessons, because they've never been taught to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless
No, I mean,
do.
even that, I've come across so many different formats as I've moved from one school to the next. That's another thing again, that this is kind of what I meant earlier as well, is just there's not much thought that goes into these things. So teachers they're given a form, a piece of paper that they have to fill in, and their principal or their district or whatever will say, this is the form that you use for your lesson plan. And they just sit down and they fill in the form. They don't really think about it. And so I'll sit down with the teacher and say, okay, this is your lesson plan. Can you talk me through it? And I say, yeah, it's there. I can read it, but tell me about it. And they've got nothing to say. There's no more depth than that. And they're often incredibly sparse. And I think there's more controversy around this than I ever expected. But I take an approach, I think lesson planning is very important. Now, I was quite surprised to find that that's a topic of debate. There are a surprisingly large contingent of teachers out there that endorse a much less stringent approach to lesson planning than I would. So a lot of the time I meet teachers and their lesson plans are very, very sparse. It's just a couple of lines. How much use is this really? And they will tell me that it's all you need, and then I'll go and observe their lesson. I say, you needed a better plan. There's a reason that this didn't work and that didn't work, and your students were confused here, and you seemed lost there, and you were confused about this, and your students asked you a question that you couldn't answer. All of that could have been avoided if it was better planned. So I think lesson planning is really important, and I think I from my experience, I would have to say the same as your teachers have, that a lot of teachers don't really get formally introduced to lesson planning as a kind of a deep process. And I think that that's a shame.
True. I guess there's, I know, as I was reading this book yesterday at night, about, again, teachers' professional life circle, maybe. Yeah. So I think it also depends. Yeah. There is a stage when you're more experienced and for example, you've worked with the book for a while.
Sure.
You don't really, so it's getting shorter or longer, and depends on the group as well. Yeah. But also, it depends. I guess it depends on the approach as well. So the structure of the planning. So I'm not surprised that there is, there can be contradictory ideas about lesson planning. So I have my note. So this is my lesson plan for my advanced teachers. So it's not maybe, so it's more about, so again, because it was absolutely based on the book. So basically there is no how it works up there. Yeah, but I was really, so, and to be honest, and I don't know, I think for many practitioner teachers, we don't have much time, and if nobody's checking
that's true.
We don't really write our plans, do we?
That can be true.
That's why I enjoyed when I was doing it, because I was the teacher of June at Teachers Teach Teachers. So this is the lesson plan is coming from. It was such a pleasure to just sit and think of the lesson and see, and it worked. It was much better than the unplanned.
And I should say, so a couple of things there that I was not saying. Certainly I'm not saying that there is one way that everybody must plan. Definitely not. And wherever there's discussion about different approaches to planning and different formats of planning, of course there's going to be as many different ways to plan as there are teachers, perhaps. That's fine, as long as there is some thought going into it. But I also say for myself, I've been teaching now for over a decade, which sometimes feels like a long time, and sometimes I'm speaking to somebody who's been teaching for 40 years and it feels like I'm a baby, but I think it's I've got a good bit of background in what I do, and I tend to think I'm good at what I do. So now I can, if I have a lesson tomorrow, or if for whatever reason I don't have time to prepare for it, I can walk into a lesson without really planning it. Not because what I'm calling on my experience, I've taught this lesson before, or I've taught students like this before, so I'll refer back to things that I've done in the past. I can do that, and occasionally I do. I'm not particularly proud of it, but occasionally, for one reason or another, every teacher finds themselves in a situation where you have to walk into a lesson you haven't really planned, and I can do it, and I can get by, and the students will learn, and it will go okay. But it never goes as well as a lesson that I've sat down and written a comprehensive plan for. The more effort I put into planning, the better my lessons are. At this stage, and I imagine I'm quite confident that will still be true 20 years from now, when I'll be, perfectly capable of walking into a lesson without a plan. But a planned lesson, it does go better. I think it works better when it's planned.
Maybe, yeah, that's why it's called planning. There is I got some feedback from my colleagues, because this was my lesson number 2, and it was really planned, and I think I had for 90 minutes, I had 6 or 7 interactions in breakout rooms. Yeah, it was an online thing, because we all know what right now, because normally it's my Moscow offline group, and it was cool. So high paced. I really enjoyed, this whole thing. And then the next lesson, for some, I didn't have time to prepare, but then I thought, okay, this would be my experiment. Such an excuse, to see if, first of all, taking myself on a dare, it's can I do that? Can I teach a group of advanced students? Because my second time teaching, the first time was last year, and so that was interesting, and that would be interesting to see if my students will really realize it. I don't have a clue.
Right, yeah, could they tell?
What's happening there? So no, they and I asked them in the end, they said, no, we didn't know you were not prepared. Maybe they lied, but I don't think they did. And so the feedback was that the lesson was much more relaxed, and that they had much more space for themselves.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have this plan that I, really wanted to go through, because it's a plan. So they enjoyed that kind of, freedom. So now I'm thinking how I can, fit in this maybe in some plan. So maybe that within the lesson there would be something vague, not that plan, maybe something like that.
And also, I think it's important, and this is, I think, one of the things that comes perhaps with a bit of experience. One of the difficult things is that as much as I want teachers to spend time planning their lesson, that plan should be a guideline. And, one of the things that I think is important for a teacher is to know when, if the time comes, to know when you maybe just have to abandon the plan. Occasionally that's the case, something isn't working in the class, or something happens that you didn't expect. And in that moment, the worst thing you can do then is say, okay, what's next on my plan? And you just kind of start ticking off your plan. And it's not going to work, because the students want to go a different way, and your intention with the students then. And so I think that's something that comes with some experience as well, perhaps. I think it's important that you have a plan. I think it's important that you know when to abandon it. And I think that there's a dichotomy there that I think works quite nicely, if you can find the balance, or if you know when to follow the plan and when to leave it. But I think that having the plan, I still tend to think is worthwhile.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yes, and I think for me, I like the way I planned this. So I planned the lesson, and then I did it like this, and here are my goals. Yeah, so
right, yeah, good.
My writing is like doctor's writing, so very hard to read. You. I could have been. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, so at least I have the handwriting.
You've got the handwriting for it.
And I believe that's something that we don't normally do. Maybe because freelancers, at least in Russia, they are overworked, and especially now. Like what I want from this lesson, so my professional development, and
I've started talking a little bit more openly recently. I've started to share a little bit more publicly personal development objectives, I've been calling them. Just saying, at the moment, this is my personal development objective, and I'll usually kind of have one that might last for a while. It might be for a few weeks or a month or more. Say, at the moment, this is the thing that I'm trying to develop in my lessons as I teach, or as I kind of think about my plans, my approaches, my materials. This is the thing that I'm trying to develop within myself. And I think it's good to have that. You might have one per lesson. You might have one, every lesson, say, this is what I want to get out of this lesson, as you said. Or you might have kind of an overarching thing that you're working on, that you're developing, maybe something you're trying to improve in your practice, that goal might be with you for a few weeks, or for a whole course or something like that. I think that's a valuable thing to do.
Right. Is it easy for you to think of something you want to work on?
No, and I wouldn't say I always have one. I'd like to say a teacher should always have one. You should always have an active objective, but I don't always have one. So, you know, the ideal is perhaps, you know, I'm not necessarily meeting the ideal, but the ideal situation would be to always have something in mind. But usually it's something that either I read about and think, oh, I don't do that. You know, I see another teacher does it, or I read something and think, oh, that's something I could incorporate into my lessons. Or it's something that, you know, I've struggled with in a lesson. I've had a problem in a lesson, and I think, okay, there's something I need to change about that. There's something I need to work on there, and so it'll be responsive to a challenge that I've faced. At the moment, the thing I'm working on at the moment is increasing visualization. So using more visual support, like images and pictures. And so I started recently kind of sketching out the material that I'm teaching, and adding sketches and drawings to some of the stuff that I'm teaching, or the training that I'm doing. And that's, you know, building in the visual approach to learning. So it's something that I think, you know, the more we can do that, the better it is for our students. And also it's just has me kind of thinking differently about the way that I'm approaching my content as well. So it's freshening up something that, you know, maybe I've taught this thing a dozen times, but now I'm kind of having to approach it differently. I can't just use the materials that I've been using for the last dozen times, because now I've got to add some more visualization into it. So I'll sit down and sketch it out, which means sometimes I think about it a little bit differently. I might change the order of things. So it's keeping my approach a little bit more fresh as well. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Wow. And you said you're sharing with them with who?
Yeah, well, I'm just posting them on LinkedIn is where I'm most active. And yeah, I would like to work towards having a forum that's kind of not closed in the sense, not private, but a dedicated forum. I'd like to set something up in the future, but I don't have anything at the moment. So the place I'm most active is LinkedIn, and I tend to post quite actively there about what I'm doing, or sharing ideas or approaches. So at the moment, that's really where it is.
Yeah, because we're working on something similar for teachers to teachers, like within the program. We do have it, like we also have, like, apart from the general track, we have the we just started this summer the exam preparation track in the similar way.
Okay.
So it's more like short term. Now it's 6, but we'll do it 8 months, so it's not super short term, but still to go through the format for a CE and CP, but with the same idea. And we started doing it with that, so to like weekly goals or monthly goals, what you're working on in terms of like teaching and language and everything. Yeah, it can be hard to think of something like sometimes really, like, it takes time. So you need, it's okay, I guess. Sometimes it's okay. I will go into the class, teach it, and then I'll see what I
I think so. Just the evaluative process, and that's why you might just find that you have one that is only active for a couple of weeks, because you have a problem and then you solve it, you know, and that can be a quick process, or sometimes it might take a lot longer. The last thing I had, which I worked on for a long time, was differentiation, trying to incorporate differentiation into my teaching. That was a relatively new idea for me, and so I wanted to include more differentiation in my teaching, which was challenging because it, you know, required a lot of work. It was a new paradigm. It required a lot of work and preparation.
It's a new paradigm for me. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so just the idea that you know, when you're teaching a group, you mentioned already when you were teaching or sorry, when you were a student, I think you mentioned, when you were a student in Russia, you would have had in the classroom maybe a large number of students crossing a number of ability levels. So you might have, you know, here in Indonesia, you might have a class of 30 odd students, and some of them are elementary and some of them are maybe intermediate, perhaps reaching into upper intermediate. And you'll have kind of a core mid-level perhaps, but there's going to be students above and students below. And differentiation is just the idea that you might teach differently to those different students. You might bring in, there are, you know, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. And I could talk now that I've been thinking about it for a while, and I could talk about it for hours perhaps, but in brief, the simplest way that you might do it is just have, for one activity, rather than planning one activity, you might have 3 different worksheets, an easy one and the standard one and a slightly more advanced one, and just bring in 3 sets of materials for that activity and say, okay, if you want the hard, you know, and then you can either You can choose which student works on which worksheet, or you can let the students decide which one they want to have a go at. So there's so many different ways of approaching it. But again, to at least be thinking about it, I think, is the important thing. To consider it, to have a strategy or an approach, whether there's not necessarily one correct approach, but to think about it, to do something about it, I think is the main thing. As I spent quite a long time trying different strategies, and also it's not easy. It's more work. It takes longer to prepare the lessons. It adds to your workload, right? But if you want to do the best thing for your students, then it's often, one of the things that I often have to just be very open with the teachers I work with about is just to say, unfortunately, I'm not necessarily here to make your job easier. As with anything in life, if you want to do a better job, you probably have to work harder. That's true for everything else. Why wouldn't it be true for teaching? So, there's no point in me sugarcoating that. There's no point in me pretending otherwise. The reality is, if you want to do a better job for your students, I'm probably going to be asking you to do a little bit more, to work a little bit harder. But what I do find as well is once you put that time in and you establish a more effective teaching approach, it requires a little bit more work in the preparation, but the lessons are better, they're smoother, it's easier to be in the classroom, it's easier to be with the students, and I think that's the thing to focus on, perhaps.
True, but it's, I mean, okay. Why did you choose this kind of job? Again, I mean, the schools and different levels, because I mean, again, instead of one lesson, you're planning 3.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not something I chose per se. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. I think it's the way it is in many parts of the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're teaching in the language centers, then they're usually designed around, they have a placement test of some kind, and they're designed around levels. But when you're teaching in the school, the mainstream schools, most countries, their national system is age-based, time-based. And so you graduate year 3 and move into year 4. And I think the thing that's particularly interesting about that is that for the most part, I think the other subjects can get away with that a little bit more. I don't think you'll get some. There'll always be students who progress quicker than others. There'll always be some of that. But in, say, maths or physics or whatever else, I think we can expect the students to be at the same pace as the curriculum more because they're all learning maths in their math lesson. The thing with languages, and especially with English in particular, is you've got students, they all come to the class at the same time, but when they go home, they have a very different exposure and experience with language learning. So you'll have some students where if you only have one English lesson a week, that's their entire learning experience. And then you have other students who come to the lesson once a week, but they go home and they're speaking English every day with their friends or with their parents, or they're watching TV where others aren't. So you have students who are learning much more outside of the classroom. And I think that that's less true with the other subjects. So you don't tend, I don't think you just have some students who are constantly exposed to physics at home the way you might with English, So I think that it's a bigger challenge perhaps in languages, and especially in English.
True, because I mean, language is not this subject per se. It's more of maybe closer to sports, because
that's a perfect comparison. You have some students who only ever do sports in their PE class, and then you have some students who go home every night and they want to play football, or they want to exactly right.
So that's why now, I never thought of it but I remembered my Spanish group at school. So for me, still Spanish is something I really learned in school. And surprisingly, we all started learning Spanish from scratch together, but we finished with very, very different levels.
I think it's just unavoidable with language, and it's, as I say, it's going to happen to some degree in every subject, but I think it's always going to be a bigger spread in the languages.
Maybe it's a bigger problem for the teacher. So maybe because we just don't teach physics, so we don't really know how it
could be the case. That could be
doesn't remember the basic rule.
Maybe, yeah.
All
right, Anita. I think we might have it there. It's been a pleasure, and I think we've probably could go on much longer. I think that's a good place to stop there. So it's been a pleasure, Anita. Before we do finish, is there anything that you want to send people in any particular direction where they can find you and find the work that you do? Anything people should be looking for?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, depends on what they're interested in. Yeah, so basically, if they like to learn about Teachers Teach Teachers, so our website is teachersteachteachers.com. I think I can send you the link to go with. Or I also have like some talks, my YouTube channel.
Yeah, anything like that. I'll add some links with the video.
And LinkedIn is blocked in Russia, so don't
oh, really?
know that.
Well, that explains a lot. I didn't know that, and that immediately goes, oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So yeah, I can sometimes when I go abroad. So I do have an app, I think, here. But so when I go somewhere and I start receiving messages on LinkedIn, but the moment I go back here, it's all. I mean, you could use the VPN thing and stuff, but I mean, it's not that popular here. I mean, and it's blocked because of when the data policy something.
Okay.
Because they're keeping the date or something, they didn't comply with the policy.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So if somebody added me ever on LinkedIn, I'm sorry I didn't reply. Sure. So I'm active on Facebook. Okay. So, and I'm always happy to talk about teaching. And now I'm also like every time I talk to somebody who's involved in teaching, how can we use you, Teachers Teach Teachers? Maybe I will be contacting you at some point.
No, I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll be happy to have you at some point. Maybe. Yeah.
Brilliant.
We'll see. Yeah. Or maybe there is something that you'd like to, do or take part in. You're always welcome.
No, great. No, I'm very happy to speak with you more about that and see what we can do. Excellent.
And if you're like looking for some crazy teachers who always speak about their job, so welcome to Russia anytime.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks a lot, Anita.
Thank you for inviting me. Good luck with your everything.
Yeah, likewise. Good luck with Teachers Teach Teacher. It seems like it's grown so quickly and it's been so successful. It's been a real thunderbolt. It's amazing.